So we'll start with the more familiar. This is a banana. You're familiar with those. There's an Orito banana. They're smaller than the average Cavendish that you find in like a Piggly Wiggly or Kroger's back up in the States. Like a quarter to half the size on average. They range from, I don't know, 50% larger than this to as small as this, smaller than that. So here's that little guy, peeled. It's about a half a bite-sized banana. This is a hand of bananas. There's anything from, I don't know, a dozen to 2 dozen, maybe 30 on a hand. This is a bunch or a rack of bananas. That's one that when I cut it down, it came down together with a nest of wasps under one of the leaves, and I had to vacate the area, then go back and recover it. But that's one of the bigger ones. Anywhere from that to, we have some that or have maybe like 4 hands, anywhere from like 4 to a dozen hands or so on a bunch. Yeah, the Oritos seem to be the only bananas we have on this property. There are dozens of varieties of bananas in Ecuador, but here, all the ones that have come to maturity have just been Oritos. There's one banana tree I've seen with it looks like a different color leaf, but I haven't seen it produce. And then there's a couple of decorative flower bananas that are non-edible. They're this pretty pink color. So besides the bananas, we've got oranges. I don't have any images of the oranges really. There was a great tree where we were getting enough oranges off of it that I was making fresh orange juice for Terry and I every single day for the first like 2 months we were here. And there were other people coming through the property taking oranges from it as well, and there was still enough for us to get fresh orange juice every day, but they're finished up now. We have lemons. These are from like our 2 favorite lemon trees. They're good sized lemons, and the skins are not particularly thick. They squeeze really well, get a ton of juice out of them. So we've been having lemonade every day, using lemon in our smoothies and so forth. There are pineapples, a couple of really gorgeous pineapples here, papayas, and pomelos. There's some huge pomelos. They're like a grapefruit, only a little bit sweeter. One of them was practically the size of a bowling ball, and it's a 50-cent piece next to one for perspective. And mandarins. There's a number of mandarins on the property. There are also mangoes, several mango trees. I think there's one behind me there, over that way a little bit. We thought it was like too rainy here, too much rain year round for mangoes to produce. That's what we were told, but there's a number of them on the property, and one of them is getting blossoms now, so who knows? Maybe it'll bear fruit. Some of the more exotic fruit, well, fairly common here, but exotic up in the States. This is a naranjilla. I used up the ripe ones. This guy's not quite ready. The fruit has a hard skin and is fairly tart. We scoop out the insides and put them in smoothies. And Rollinia. There are a bunch of Rollinia trees on this property. Rollinia is similar to cherimoya, which we can get at the market here, but they're not on the property, and soursop, which is on the property, and we also had those in St. Croix. Rollinia has like a little more of like a lemon custardy flavor, and although the trees are really, really tall here on the property, so I had to fashion these sort of twisty pickers. I had to reconstruct them from found objects here so that I could get at the really high ones. So this first one here is like 24 feet long. I can reach Rollinia, not quite 30 feet up. But then if it's so heavy and long that it was harder to reach lower down ones, so I had to fashion a next picker that's a little shorter so I can get medium height Rollinia as well. There are also a lot of ice cream bean. Here it's called guava with a B, not to be confused with guava with a V, that a little soft round thing. Oh, there's guava around here too, but locally it's called a guava ice cream bean. It's planted as like a nitrogen fixer and a mulcher for like chop and drop, but it can grow into really, really huge trees, and it has these really large, long pods that are filled with a line of seeds with sweet pulp around them. It's pretty good. And jackfruit, there are a couple jackfruit trees on the property. We gave it a shot a couple of times. We weren't really thrilled with jackfruit, but there was this like huge 70 or 80 pound jackfruit that we were keeping an eye on, and it finally started to split on the tree. So we took it down, and most of it still wasn't ripe. So, but we salvaged a bunch of it. Some of it was ripe. We were able to eat some of the ripe fruit and also cook up some of the unripe stuff and use that. But again, it seems like it just wasn't worth the hassle. We weren't really thrilled with it. And then a little bit smaller one fell, and again, I salvaged a bunch of that, and that was much more ripe. But again, yeah, we weren't impressed. It's not our favorite fruit. But there are a number of them, at least 2 jackfruit, probably more than 2 jackfruit trees on the property. And then there are a few other, there are a couple of sapote trees and a couple others that I cannot remember the name of right now. We didn't really get to try those. So there's a number of, there are more exotic fruits here. And finally, there are edible plants, other edible plants. There's cranberry hibiscus. It's a type of hibiscus with a red leaf, that the leaf is edible. And kutuk, that's it's called sweet leaf bush. You can eat almost everything from it. The leaves and the tips that are tender, you can just eat those raw. You can eat the flowers, you can eat the little berries. You can cook the leaves if you want, but it's not necessary. It's really a good source of calcium and protein and a lot of other nutrients. We use those too a lot. We blend those up in our smoothies pretty much every morning. There's also like some kind of Brazilian spinach. There's dandelion greens, and what else? Taro. There's taro all over the property here. It grows like weed. You can eat the greens. You have to cook them. I think there's some chemical component that's dangerous if you don't cook them. So cook the leaves sufficiently, but you can cook them up like spinach or any other type of green. But also the root is edible. You have to cook that as well. The root is, starchy. It's sort of like a potato, but it's got a denser nutrient profile. It's a staple food all over the world, except for in the U.S. Speaking of root vegetables, we've also got ginger and turmeric growing here. When we first arrived, first thing I saw is a couple of like scraggly little leaves that looked like they were turmeric leaves, and I think the caretaker had weed whacked and whacked most of the tops off of them before we got here. But I saw a couple of these leaves and did a little digging, and sure enough, turmeric root. Found a bunch of it down there, even though there weren't too many tops on there. So we've been getting fresh turmeric from that the whole time we've been here. Didn't see any ginger for a while, but just a couple of days ago, I saw a couple of leaves among just some weeds that were growing along the side of the house. And I thought, those sort of look like ginger. So I did a little digging, and sure enough, ginger root, or what looked like ginger root. So although it seemed, as you can see, it's a little bit whiter on the inside and drier and a little more dense than the ginger I'm used to. And so Terry did some Googling, and it's likely that this is galangal, a type of Thai ginger. It's at first the taste is very like mild and the flavor very mild but prepared in food, it's got a little more peppery taste than traditional ginger, and a milder ginger flavor. So that's most of what we found. There's probably, a lot of other fruits and vegetables and edible plants here that we haven't even discovered yet. But that covers a lot of them.